The talk is The Tester at the Table and the Tester in My Head. My name is Adrian Dunston, and it's story time. Yay! Yay! So I was working with James. This is James. I was working with James. He was my QA, and he walks up to me one day, and he says, "Wow, that interface you're working on looks really complicated." And I'm like, complicated? What do you mean complicated? He said, "Do you mind if I play with it?" Sure. So he sits down, he starts clicking and dragging, and then click, 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 drag, drag, drag. He's just clicking all over the place. And I'm like, "James, what are you doing?" He says, "I'm testing." I said, "No user is going to do that." He said, "What if they're not at their best?" "What do you mean not at their best?" He said, "I used to QA cash registers. Do you know who uses the 2 a.m. self-checkout registers? People who aren't at their best. Sometimes they're drunk, sometimes they're coming off shift, sometimes their kid is sick, and they just have to pick up one thing, and they will just mash the screen." I said, "Well, my users aren't like that. My users are professionals." I said, "Oh, are they computer professionals?" "No, they're psychologists. They're working with traumatized kids. They have the worst conversations you can have all day long, and then at the end of the day, they sit down to your system to type their notes, and you think they're going to be at their best?" So I make that face, where you're grumpy on top but pouty on the bottom. Years later, different company working with a bunch of junior developers. I've got this interface, I'm really proud of it. One of the junior developers comes up and he's like, "Wow, that looks really complicated." And that word just echoes in my head, complicated. So I start clicking around, just click, click, drag, drag. And they're like, "What are you doing?" And I make that face where you're curious on top but pouty on the bottom. And I say, "Well, what if the users aren't at their best?" Again, I'm Adrian Dunston. I'm a colorblind middle child of 5, father of 2, software developer, silly video maker, and Star Trek fan. And we have colorblind representation. And if you don't know what it's like to be colorblind, these markers look like that to me. Ooh. Yeah, isn't that fun? Whee! Yeah, it's pretty neat. There are apps to show you what colorblind world looks like. I recommend them. Apparently, it looks different. Oh, no, I also have the glasses. The way y'all see the world is ridiculous. I don't know how you live. This is my purpose, spread equality mindset. I don't see a timer. Is there a timer? No, I'll just look at my watch. Ooh, 3 minutes, nice. This is the purpose. We want to spread a quality mindset. I believe that it is not enough to have a quality mindset because everything about the industries that we are in push against that and erode that. The only way to maintain it and to grow is to spread out to other people. So if you will listen to the various stories and pull in just a few things about what I'm saying and then take them back and spread a quality mindset where you are, you're not only going to be making better quality software, you're going to be making better quality process and a better quality you. It's about the maker, making, and made. That's something I got off of G. Paw Hill. I don't know where he got it, but I really like it. So we're going to go over 1 big why and 4 hows. I believe that computer science is about people. The people that use the software, the people that make the software, the people that test the software, the people that specify and sell and manage the software, and the people who are affected by the software without ever even touching it. We heard a lot about that in the keynote today. This stuff's important. You may know some of these people. You may even care about some of these people. Poor quality software hurts all of these people. I love Kathy Sierra's take on this. Her book is amazing if you get a chance to check it out. It's wonderful. Quality is a form of love. It's a way that we show we care for one another. Quality in our interactions, in the products that we give to people, and growing and making ourselves into quality people is how we show we care for ourselves. It can't just be the QA person's job. It has to be everybody's job. And we're coming together not just to make the products, but for that maker, making, and made. So that's our big why. Because humans. I love humans, and I want them to have good lives, and I've worked at too many places where the humans didn't have good lives, or the humans that were using the software didn't have good lives. We want to be better. So how do we do that? Lots of ways, so many ways. One way is to spread a quality mindset. Well, in order to spread a quality mindset, you have to have a quality mindset. I've found that a really good way to keep a quality mindset is to have a little tester in your head. To have a voice that will just pop up every once in a while and say, hey, remember this thing? Oh, boop, boop. To have that voice in your head. And it can't just be the person at the table. It can't be a single QA person that's acting as that voice for you. This particular picture, my artist drew Angie Jones, who is a phenomenal speaker and quality person. I look up to her a lot. If you have a chance to follow her, I recommend it. But it can't just be that one person. Anytime you work with a great QA person, you pull their ideas into your head. When you work with the next QA person, you pull their ideas until that voice in your head grows and grows until it's a fully formed voice in... Good heaven! Hi, Sydney. Why are you a giant bull ant? Okay, granted. Okay, yeah. Everybody please meet Sydney, the giant bull ant tester in my head. How, number one, is listen to QA. It sounds simple. So what do testers do? Testers break things. What do you mean you don't break things? That's how it works. Developers create software and testers break it. Okay, then what do developers create? All right. Developers create mysteries. Like, does it work? Does it work all the time? Does it work all the time and also email out everybody's passwords? Together, developers and testers create software. They are co-creators. They're working together with us to make it. Now, I can hear some of you thinking, because I am that kind of telepathic, what about that lone developer, that 10x coder? He doesn't have a tester. Well, sure he does. We call them users. If you're making software for anybody other than yourself, you are collaborating with someone. It's really better to collaborate with QA. They're 100 times better than users, and they're not going to leave and then your company collapses because nobody's buying your stuff. Here's how it works. Developers create software with their unimaginable optimism. It's great. You sit down at the beginning of the day believing that something is going to exist at the end of the day that doesn't exist now because it came out of your mind. That is a very optimistic thing. Testers aren't pessimistic, they're skeptical. They believe that you can do it, they just don't believe you've done it yet. My favorite testers, when you ask them, what color is that fence? They'll say, that fence is blue on this side. I love Mike's take on this. To him, quality is not just an adjective, it is it's baked into the software itself. So QA professionals help create software. That's what they do. What do you mean, and? Okay, all right. QA professionals help create software, and they keep a mental model of the product. I don't have a mental model of my product. I have a mental model of the last feature I wrote. I know it very well. The feature before that, I know that pretty well too. One before that gets kind of hazy. My product owner, he doesn't have a mental model of the product. He has a mental model of the next thing and of the problem we're trying to solve. But Andre, my tester, he goes through every feature, every release. So when somebody asks me, can your product do this thing? I say, hold on, let me ask Andre. I can go look at the code, I can try to remember, I can go through the interface myself, but it's faster to ask Andre. One of the things he's providing is a full mental model. They also advocate for users. Sometimes QA is the only person standing up and saying, you can do this, but it's bad for users. I know you want to drag your ticket to the right or whatever, but that's not a great choice for the users. Sometimes they're advocates for the truth. Like, you can make a decision that's bad for users as long as you are making that with all of the available information. They also act as morale centers. I don't necessarily think they should have to, but I have noticed that when things are going poorly, it's QA that says, well, things are bad now. This sprint has been really rough, but overall, the product is good. And the last couple of sprints, we've done very well. When things are going well, they're often the ones that are coming out and saying, hey, you did really well with this. It would be nice if all of us did that, but I've noticed that it is a function that QA often performs. Jenny Bramble is an amazing speaker. She's also my speaking mentor. And when she says team morale directly correlates with software quality, she's not just saying if you're working on quality software, you're going to be happier. She's saying happy people make better software. Okay, right, because this is a how section. Here's what you should be doing. Listen on purpose. It's harder than it sounds. Story time for listen on purpose. Oh, right. Okay, so I was working at the statistics company. They made statistics software. And nobody would listen to me. I got pretty upset about it. I went and talked with the VP. I'm on the 5th floor. I'm talking with the VP. He receives what I'm saying. We have a good meeting, and I leave. And I notice that on the 5th floor, top floor, all of the doors have doctor on them. So I walk all around the 5th floor. Everybody on the top floor is either a PhD mathematician or an executive. Oh my gosh, it's a class system. So we didn't sell software, we sold math. We just wrapped the math in software so that people could buy it. It was a class system, and I noticed because I wasn't first class. Later, I'm working at a completely different company, and I get close to one of the QA folks, and she says, man, nobody here will listen to me. Nobody listens to me at all. And I think, oh yeah, I know what that is. Sexism. I've read about that in a book. Then I get close to another QA person. He says nobody listens to me either. Then I get in a chat room with both of them. And oh my gosh, the things that they say. The things that they've had to deal with. Developers, managers, they're talking about you. Just FYI. I was like, what? Why is your experience so much different from, oh my gosh, it's a class system. Yeah. I only recognized it because I was in that chat room, I was in a mostly QA environment. Otherwise, I wouldn't have noticed that I wasn't listening. I love this. If you have a chance to read stuff on Gaping Void, it's wonderful. We like to think of our companies this way. You've got executives at the top and middle management, and then us. We're on the bottom. I'm just an individual contributor. Just like when I was younger, I used to say, well, I'm just a private citizen. But it's not true. There are a lot of different adjectives and labels. I'm a cisgendered, white, hetero, male, relatively well-off person. And each of these things can confer some kind of privilege, which it shouldn't, but each of these adjectives do. At work, I'm not just an individual contributor on the bottom with everybody else. I'm a developer. People listen to me at most companies. They make movies about me, where I'm some sort of magical person that can do anything. They disproportionately compensate me for my work. This is one of the effects of that across industries. It's only one, but it's one that I'm focusing on today. So how do we fight that? We listen on purpose. That means giving people space to talk. The new feature is broken in the test environment. It works on my machine. Don't ever say that. Like, you can think it. I know it's true sometimes, but don't say it. Instead, you say, what's the behavior you're seeing? You invite people to give you more information. You provide space for them to talk. You ask them to weigh in on purpose. Are we good on this? Yes, yes, yes. We love saying yes. QA, what are we missing? If you're a team lead, if you're a manager, if you're Scrum Master, if you have the floor, that's a question you should be asking a lot. Because you're missing something. We know we're missing something. Accept their influence. Now, this doesn't mean do whatever they say. They're not always right. I don't want to spend the manpower on spinning up a new QA environment. Did you read the risk assessment? Yes, I'll do it, but I just don't want to. accepting their influence is about actually listening and letting it penetrate, even if that's not the way that you go. So again, QA professionals are co-creators, they keep a mental model, they advocate for the users, and they're often morale centers. We should listen on purpose by giving them space, asking them for their expert advice, and accepting their influence. All right, that's the big long section. Next section's a little slower. We're going to pick up speed as we go. Here we go. Number 2, amplify QA's voice through repetition, catchphrases, and stories. Story time for Amplify. Okay, second week on a new job. I'm in a planning meeting, and the boss is like, this thing is only 3 extra fields, so that should be like last sprint, everything's cool. And developer's like, yeah, everything's cool. QA says, and then the boss moves on. He's like, okay, next thing. So I raise my hand. I say, excuse me, I think QA had something she wanted to say. And QA looks at me like this. You can hear me? Everybody else gives me that one. And the boss turns to QA and said, did you have something? And QA says, well, yes. Since the 3 fields that we're adding are each individually overridable, we're talking about 12 different states instead of 3, and that adds significant risk. And then the boss gives me this one and says, did you know that? I said, I don't even know what y'all are talking about, but I know what it means when QA says, A lot of times, amplify QA's voice means say what QA just said. Just repeat them in a way that people understand that it's not a new idea, because people will think that it's a new idea if you don't point it out. Another way, what's your estimate? I'll grab QA so we can discuss it. Make sure they're in the room. I think they got it, Sydney. Okay, all right. If you're talking about estimates, if you're talking about schedules, if you're talking about whether or not something is done, go and get QA. They should be there for those conversations. Seriously, make sure they're there. Oh, you're welcome. Find the catchphrases. This is a way to spread things. People will believe a thing if you repeat it enough times. People will believe a thing if you repeat it enough times. People will believe a thing if you repeat it enough times. These are things that my father-in-law just always says. Nothing hard is ever easy. Even a blind pig finds an acorn once in a while. I don't actually know what that means. I'm not real clear on that one. These are things that QA people have said to me over the years. You explain, I decide. That's why we have checklists. Developers, keep checklists. Before you turn something over, before you mark it done, before you deploy, have a checklist and use it every time. It will save you so much trouble. It feels childish. Do it every time. It's awesome. That's one of James's. Nobody will buy half the store. Jenny Hessa would always say, prove it. I would say, hey, I finished this feature. She said, yeah, let's see it. Prove it. Testers repeat themselves when something is important. So a lot of times the things that you'll hear over and over again are the most important things for your team to learn. So pick up what they're saying and you repeat it too. That way you're pulling it into yourself further and you're spreading it out. And when QA hears you repeating them, A, they'll say, I repeat myself. B, if you tell them, yes, you say this thing and it really helps me, they're going to feel appreciated, they're going to feel listened to, and it's going to strengthen the tester in their head. So now they're stronger too, and the whole team starts getting uplifted. Just by repeating certain phrases that your team needs to hear. And of course, the tester in your head gets bigger. Too big. The other way is to find the stories. Humans are ridiculous things. We make decisions with our feelings, and we remember everything in terms of stories. For instance, once upon a time, there was this magical place called Abstractions 2, where the lovely and talented Adrian Dunston gave a talk. And all of the people who saw his talk went home, and when they went home, all they could remember were the stories he told. This happens all the time, forever. So use it. Take what you're saying and put it into a story. You want your story to be simple, unexpected, and emotional. the story at the top about what if they're not at their best, it was simple. My tester taught me something, I said no thank you, and then I used it. It was unexpected because I actually learned something. It was also emotional. That's why I used the little faces, because I felt ways during that, and I want you to understand and feel those ways too. In order to use stories, you have to collect stories. I have a bullet journal and I have Evernote. You can use whatever you want to collect these stories, but you want to keep them so that you can go back over them and start repeating them. They're part of your life, and you can use everything that happens in your life. It's super easy to write down a story. You need two things. What happened first? First, QA lost an argument about risk, and then what happened second? Then we all had to stay late when the app exploded. You've got emotion right there. It's simple, unexpected, emotional, just two things. What happened first, what happened next? Scribble it down, at retro, look through. First, I told QA, works on my machine. And then she crushed you for your impudence. No! She asked me where my environment was different, and I found the bug. QA does this all the time. They'll play dumb. They'll say, well, I don't know what's wrong with my environment. And I go look, and what's wrong with their environment was that I wrote a bug into the software. I'm like, oh, golly, really? James used to tell a story about working in about the cash registers. In Alaska, there are general stores where people show up before winter and buy thousands of dollars worth of stuff all at once. They just sit there and ring up item after item. If you ring up 200 cans of tuna and then the cash register goes down, people will get upset enough to walk across the street to the other general store. So he'd tell this story, and at the end, he would always end it with, they probably won't buy half the store, but if they do, you want your register running. Tell your stories in a way that brings a team together. Tell their stories. Tell stories about people like them or situations like them, and do it in a way that's not, ha, I got you, or I told you so, but more like, remember that time we didn't point in risk, and they all had to stay all night? How is this different? That question's helpful. It's not, you'd better do this, it's work with me here. What am I missing? How is this different? So the Amplify QA's voice, you repeat them, you go get them, you use catchphrases as much as possible, and you tell things in terms of stories. Walk the walk. Actions speak louder than words. These are the things that you should be doing. Number one is respect their property. A play about bug tickets. Oh, that's not a bug. I can see why Julia thinks that's a bug, but it's not really. I'll just drag that over. Yes, I shouldn't. Oh, it's a bug ticket. That doesn't belong to me. Yeah, Julia used to say, I explain it, and then she decides whether or not it's a bug. Yes, thank you. What do you mean, like code safety or personal safety? These are examples of things that might be QA's property. The bug tickets themselves, the QA environments. I never log into a QA environment without checking with Andre first, because I don't want to mess up something while he's running automation. It's his. The test plans. I used to write and check in test plans. Your team could be different. A lot of times testers don't like that because I'm bad at it. So they say, just email it to me. I'll make it good. You have to discuss with your tester what is yours and what is theirs. Having those boundaries is very helpful for that relationship. Remove obstacles. Walking the walk means keeping things out of their way. Here's how it's supposed to work. Developer is going along writing code. Every once in a while, between two features, there will be a horrible bug, and it will come flying right at you. And then your tester is there to catch that bug. And as long as they catch it before it hits production, that's part of the software development life cycle. That's how it goes. If you could write software without bugs, then you would be taking way too long to write that software in the first place. That's why we have professionals. But they're going to get verification fatigue, which is something I and my tester friends invented. It works like this. If I write a feature that has just a ton of bugs, a ton of things that I'm letting pile up, a ton of process issues that I haven't followed because I haven't looked at my checklist, then my tester's going to go back there and start working on those. And while she's working on these little ticky-tacky things, the big bug's going to come. There's only so many times you can test a single feature before you're sick of looking at it. And once you're sick of looking at it, you're not going to use that deviousness that QA is known for to figure out, what are those ridiculous users going to do. So if you leave a mess, they're going to get fatigued and they're not going to find the big thing that you need them to find. You're not safe. The other is environment support. If your tester says, my environment's down again, don't ever say, that's not my problem. It is your problem. It's like if the fire department goes on strike. Because while they're down there working on their environment, which you are probably more qualified to help with, because even though you're not operations people, you have had to unfutz your own personal environment enough times, you probably know how to go and help out with theirs a little bit faster. And if you don't, then while they're down there mucking about with it, you're not safe. A third way is pairing. You can pair with QA. They can come over and see what you're doing and say, oh, that's why that bit keeps failing. Yeah, that part's really complex. That gives them insight into what's going on, into what to look for. Remember to test the negative case? Oh, right, I keep writing happy path for tests. When a tester watches me write unit tests, they will giggle a bit. Because I write pretty good unit tests, but I'm only testing for the things that I want to happen. I'm rarely testing for the things that I don't want to happen or the things that I don't expect to happen. We have all of these tools to help us with that. One of those tools is to have your tester come pair with you on it. You can also go and watch them test. I forgot that feature existed. Yeah, it's a drag because it can't be automated. I could put some hooks in for automation. Whoop. If you're not sitting with your tester every once in a while, you don't know what their life is like. It could be that there are things going on with them that you could really help with, or things that they are dealing with that if you knew that, you would write better code. If you knew that this section is really difficult to work with, then maybe you can put in tickets to fix that section, to make it nicer to work with, and then everybody's helped. I'm going to check the time. Ooh, not a whole lot of time. Let's do this one very quickly. I'll play about reactions. I can't believe Andre put in all of those tiny ticky-tacky bugs. I've been working on this thing for a month. It's been 2 of our sprints to do this thing because it was completely underspecified, and I'm honestly surprised that it works at all. Why is he coming to me with these tiny little bugs? No. Yeah, I know. Andre's just doing their job. I'm grumpy about it, Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I should go take a walk. I should chill out. I'm going to tell my tester what I always tell my tester. Thank you. Your feelings are valid. When your tester gives you a bug and you're grumpy about it, that's a valid feeling and also your responsibility. Take a breath, take a walk, name your feeling, accept it, work through it, and then come back and work with your tester on making things better. Do not make your feelings their responsibility. That's, to my thinking, the biggest way to walk the walk. As a developer, keep our egos in check, deal with our own feelings. Don't hand that off to people. Finally, make a deal. This is the culmination. It's also short because we already talked about most of this stuff. Developers co-create code with their optimism. Testers bring the skepticism. Together they make code. I believe that the relationship between a single developer and a single tester is the most important relationship in a company. If you are spreading a quality mindset as a developer, you can go and grab your tester and get lunch or something and sit down and say, let's make a deal together, you and I. If you're QA, you can grab the developer that you trust the most and sit down and say, you and I, let's work together. Story time. Oh, I gave a similar talk at a different conference, and Jeff Manhart said, hey, that happened to me. And I said, oh, that's awesome. Tell me how. He said, there was this meeting where the boss was just yelling at the developers for stuff that wasn't even their fault. So I jumped up and said, hey, leave them alone. This was completely underspecified. This is not their fault at all. After that meeting, one of the developers came up and said, that was so great. Thank you so much. And we became friends. We started working together. We started pairing. All of a sudden, I'm understanding the system better. His unit tests get better. The team starts noticing what we're doing. The level of work goes up. He said, I've never cried leaving a job before, but I cried leaving that one. He also gave me permission to tell that story. Other people say, yeah, I do that every time I get to a place. I find the developer that is most trustworthy, and I sit down with them and I say, you support me, and I keep you safe. Here's what that looks like. Developers supporting QA, you stick up for QA in meetings. You amplify their voice, you make sure you're there, all the things we've been talking about. Then you do your fit and finish. Again, follow your checklists, make sure you're not leaving obstacles in their way. QA keeps you safe by catching those nasty bugs and by contextualizing the bugs that do get through. When something goes wrong in production, all of a sudden QA has people's ear more than usual. They can say, this was a failure of process. Let me show you how this came to be. They can keep you safe in multiple ways. And you can do that on purpose. You can set up these relationships on purpose. It doesn't have to be just, I go in today and see how things go today. You can make it like your own little secret cabal. One developer and one tester. It's very powerful. So spread a quality mindset for the humans. Listen to QA, amplify their voice, walk the walk, and make a deal when you can. Thanks, Sydney. Okay. We like to think of ourselves as individuals. We are individual actors. But we're units in a system working together. Dr. Dan Siegel, a psychiatrist, he says that anytime somebody influences you, they become, in a neurological, physical sense, a part of who you are. We have an opportunity to make the best of ourselves a part of the people around us. I believe that if you spread a quality message about ourselves and our process and our products, then you're going to make those products better, you're going to make our jobs better, you're going to make all of us better. Thanks a lot.